Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Mano 777, and we're back inside of Destiny, here with a look at some details about the new raid, the Wrath of the Machine, as well as an overview of how Destiny's developers explain their raid development process. I found it to be very interesting because I mainly carry people through the raids on my Twitch live streams, and it's cool to see how the whole process works and how they talked about the development. So, guys, we're going to delve into that a little bit. If you find something in this video to be worthwhile, a positive rating is greatly appreciated. Hit that subscribe button for more Destiny content. Then, guys, if you find something interesting, leave a comment down below. I love talking to you guys about gaming and Destiny in general. And also, if you have not done one of the raids in Destiny before Rise of Iron comes out, feel free to stop by my channel on my Twitch live streams. I bring people through the raids all the time. It's really cool. I like running people through those experiences for the first time. It's one of my favorite things to do. And some people ask me, they're like, you don't really talk about it a whole lot in your YouTube channels, and you really should, because you bring people through all the time. So I'm just letting you know, if you ever need help with it, stop by. So guys, with that, let's get started. One of my favorite things that I picked up from the article was a lot of the design goals and mentalities of the raids in Destiny. One of the things that they talked about were the design goals in relation to the user interface. One of the cool things about Destiny is that it doesn't have 1,000 debuffs and buffs going on at the same time, whereas like World of Warcraft, when you're looking down at your character, maybe it's a little bit easier to control all that information. You can see what's going on with your character and what other people are doing. Whereas in Destiny, in the first-person shooter aspect of it, there's really only one or two debuff or buff things that could be happening, because when you're in the state of the game, when you're looking down the barrel of the gun, first-person shooter, it's a lot more chaotic. And that was one of the goals that they talked about. They said it's so chaotic to deal with 5 or 6 things on the left side of the screen and not be able to take your mouse and go over to a cursor and control something. It makes it a lot harder to control and to deal with on the fly. They talked about some golden rules of bosses. One of the golden rules of the bosses is that the boss should be able to threaten you from any location in the game space. And if you think about all the bosses that we've had so far, every boss in some way, shape, or form has been able to attack you or threaten you, whether it's from a debuff or from physical damage or something else like that. The second golden rule is that you can't use geometry to avoid the boss. You're not able to use geometry. Now, this is a little bit weird because I'm thinking about Crota. You know, you can hide in that middle, you can hide in that crystal room for a little bit, but the truth is that you can hide in that crystal room, but you can't progress forward. What I loved is the fact that they talked about the reason why, philosophically, they have this massive rule of no matchmaking. And here's what they said. Absolutely, there was a mandate that we had to break the rules. No matchmaking is a huge thing. We can design with the assumptions that you're playing with some people that you're invested with. Even if you're not your friends, you've put some amount of investment in being able to play with them, and they're not this just resource to you. The fact that we can account for you having voice communication is big. And I find that that's really important. A lot of people say and scream for matchmaking all the time, but the truth is that, you know, I found with other games like The Division, on these strikes and these high-end activities, people would just ditch out all the time. There was no accountability for them. People would just drop out, or, you know, they would want to bring other people in and they wouldn't understand the encounters. When you're invested in the activity, it means more to you, and also you're more likely to stick around, which I think is important. I love how they talked about individual responsibility for this is the team responsibility to the group in doing the raid encounters. A lot of times what the community has done is, if possible, they'll always put the greatest responsibility on the fewest number of people. When they originally designed Crota and when they tested it internally, they originally said whoever's closest to the sword, you just go pick up the sword, you go be the sword bearer. But now in hindsight, there's usually a dedicated sword bearer anytime someone runs the sword in Crota. Yeah, I know that back when it was the Dark Below, that usually was a thing. That's actually how I got my start. One of my first videos is how to run the sword. So, you know, a lot of times people in raids really try as much as possible to put a huge amount of responsibility on those people who know exactly what's going on. And the only way that Bungie can design a raid where it forces other people to take on more responsibility is to create encounters that is a requirement for. They did mention and talk a little bit about how raids have evolved. A lot of times they described the Vault of Glass is like raid middle school, Crota was raid high school, and now Kingsfall was raid college. And so it's interesting to see that progression. And it's interesting because they're learning a lot more about the raids and how they're going to account for different things that the community comes up with. One of the things they also talked about was Touch of Malice. I liked the fact they acknowledged the fact that Touch of Malice made the encounter in Kingsfall a lot easier, and it was a gun that was nice to have. It was something cool in your toolkit, but it wasn't something that broke the game. It wasn't something that destroyed the game. Now, Necrochasm didn't do that, but at first, Vex Methaclast absolutely broke PvP for a while until they nerfed it into the ground. But you know, when you got your Vex, it felt amazing. When you got your Necrochasm for the first time, it felt amazing, but you know, in some ways, the Vex kind of broke the meta a little bit for a while until they nerfed it. Necrochasm was never really good, which was sad because I wanted to see it become really interesting and really powerful. But it's interesting how they dealt with the quest line for Touch of Malice and how they dealt with it in the encounter. So the details about the new raid, as I talked about in one of my former videos, they talked about crap crashing into other crap. And so what they talked about specifically with Siva is this idea of hybridization. The Fallen faction with the Siva, that's partially where all these ideas come together. But in gameplay, it just turned into, well, let's start smashing stuff into other things. So now the other things that they're talking about is that in Kingsfall, they really tried to detail a lot of mechanics, a lot of details about how raids should go. No surprises necessarily. You do X and you will get Y. And now what they've just said is that they're going to put control in our hands. We're going to play up the strengths of the Destiny sandbox. So it's sort of leaning the pendulum in the other direction. They described the raid in comparison to the others as it's very hard. It's largely a function of what your light level is versus the raid. Kingsfall has the property of where even if you're over leveling the mechanics, they don't get easier. You still have difficulty if you don't perform the activity correctly. Even if you're 335 light level, I go a lot of times on my stream, a lot of people say, well, I'm 334 Warlock, and I'm like, great, have you done the raid? Have you seen the raid? And a lot of times they say no, and I'm like, cool, I just got to explain it to you. But if they go into that raid blind with no idea, their light level doesn't matter. Whereas it seems here in this new raid, that's going to be a change. Finally, they talked a little bit about how the raids developed. You know, a lot of times they look at encounters and they see if there are encounters that we can work in a raid, they try and incorporate them. But a lot of times, a lot of stuff ends up on the cutting room floor. Usually ideas are not panned off, and their goal is always to get a raid to a playable state so people can internalize and test their theories, test the ways they can experiment with them. And they said if they actually showed some of the raids like that we know, like if they showed Kingsfall's first iteration, we wouldn't recognize it, that it would be it would be absolutely garbage, which is crazy to think because I know that I love all the raids in Destiny. It's my favorite thing to do. A lot of times it's really cool to see how a design mechanic and how people who work together on those things put that together. So guys, that is details on the new raid as well as the mindset of the directors and the designers of the Destiny raids. So everyone in the community is really excited for the new raid, Wrath of the Machine. It is going to be dropping September 23rd at about 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which is about 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to be looking to level up my character super fast because me and my raid team are going to go and attempt to get worlds first. So if you want to check that out, that is down in my Twitch live streams down below. You can find that information. Guys, again, if you like something in this video, a positive rating would be greatly appreciated. Hit that subscribe button for more Destiny and gaming content. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the new raid. What are you looking for? What's the favorite raid you've ever done? What's your favorite raid? I'd love to hear from you because I've done all the raids a number of times. I've got my favorite. I'm going to hold off on my answer until you guys post some of those comments down below. So thank you so much for watching. And guys, I will see you next time in the universe of Destiny.